Hi everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. We're doing a video series at the moment. It's daily videos post our 6 to 8 week grocery haul, and it's to do with how I manage to keep the food for that period of time. How I preserve it, how I freeze it, how I cook it, all that sort of thing. We've probably only got a couple days left, and we might have a few days that are days joined up, and then we'll be back to doing sort of just here and there a few videos a week with still doing some food prep because that's my everyday, and sharing some cooking and things like that, what we eat in a week and all that. But this is probably coming to the end of the daily videos. We've got nearly everything done that needs to be done. There is still a few more things. There's a few heads of cabbage and some zucchini that I'm still going to work on over the next couple of days. I might can some coleslaw. I'll probably grate up the zucchini, make some zucchini fritters and freeze some of the zucchini probably too. I might make up a new batch of zucchini butter. I don't know, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But generally speaking, most of what needed to be done is done, and now we just have the extra tasks. So I need to can some baked beans because I was going to do that. I need to make some of my fake dairy-free margarine type thing that I make most of the time, and a bunch of baking, sourdough, all those sorts of things that come along after I have managed to get most of the other stuff done. So we've finally got some room in the fridge now that I've got most of the stuff processed. The freezer's a chock-a-block because the stuff that had to go in the freezer is in the freezer, and my shelves are looking really good as well. So I'll have to share a bit of an update on the shelves and the freezers and stuff as well at some point. And now we're just working on what we've got. I have worked out that it'll probably be a 6 week gap this time, so I'll probably go, the next time I do groceries, it will be 6 weeks from when I did the last lot, trying to work out dates around everything else. So I think that it'll be a 6 week gap this time. We don't have the hamper in February this month, unfortunately. They just aren't running one this month, so March will be the next one, next time we get one of those, probably just before we go for the next shopping trip, hopefully. I think I worked out like the 21st or something is when I'll go for the next grocery haul. So probably the weekend before that ish is when we'll get the next hamper, which will be great because that will work out well timing wise. Other than that, we have some stuff done today, some stuff done. So this is day 9, I think, and then I've got a day 10 as well. And then from that point forward, we will see how we go. I'm still working on the Q&A videos. I haven't sat down to actually film it yet. I've just been writing some notes and stuff out, so I will get that sorted as well. And I'm working really hard on getting the website up and running and things like that. And those mugs done. We finally rearranged the living area so that I can put the heat press and everything where I can actually access it, and I can make those progress not perfection mugs for everyone. So that will be really exciting. So hopefully I will have a demo of that done next week to show you all, and then we can start working on the mugs and stuff with that, and potentially a couple of other designs if I want to go that way, like that image of rainbow and stuff I think would be really cute on a mug. So, and you can never have too many mugs. Well, we can't, and we break a lot of them. So we will work that out, and I'll have to work out shipping costs and things like that too for those. So lots of stuff on the cards coming along now that I've got the majority of the food done. There is always heaps more to do food wise, obviously, because we only prep things to be used later on. We still have to do other things to cook it and stuff like that, but at least the majority of any sort of food that is going to go bad if it's not dealt with is now dealt with, and we can move on to other tasks, soap making and the gardens and just general off-grid stuff. Like we got that grey water working, but I need to extend the lines to some other places that I want, where I want to plant out those pineapple tops. I'd like along a grey water line, I think, and things like that. So slowly getting there with everything else as well, but enjoy the food for today. It actually was Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day. I didn't realise, but it was. So we've got pancakes and things like that. So enjoy the video today, and I will see you again probably tomorrow. All right. So as I said, it had turned out to be Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day. We are not religious, but excuses, there doesn't need to be much of an excuse to make pancakes. And I got an email from Tupperware in the morning that was selling their mixing bowls and their pancake squeezy thing and stuff, and said that it was Pancake Day, and I thought, oh, look at that, it's Pancake Day. So we had half of the apples that I had stewed the other day that I used in the tarts yesterday. I still had half a container of those apples left to go. So good excuse to make apple pancakes. So what I did was I made the American style pancake recipe that's on Cookie Dough for the Thermomix, which is the one that I get the kids to make if they're making pancakes, because it's guided cooking, so they can read the ingredients, the scales are built into the Thermomix, and they can make pancake recipe by reading the instructions and making it in the Thermomix. So it works wonderfully. The pancake recipe is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not anything, it's fine, it's just a pancake recipe. But I wanted to make these ones with apples, so what I did was I followed that recipe basically, but I did half the milk in it. So we double the recipe on Cookie Dough, and then we use coconut cream, and we use ghee, and I used coconut sugar, the naturally sweet coconut sugar that I was gifted for these, because I thought that would really complement the apples as well. And I've said before, we adore coconut sugar, it's just expensive, so I don't buy it a whole lot. So when I am feeling like using it for something special, then I do, and we enjoy it. So I used half the milk, which meant that the pancake batter was really, really thick. Then I diced up all the apples that were left, had a little bit of the cinnamon syrup was in the bottom of the thing too, and put that all into the batter, which then was going to thin the batter out, which was the plan. So once I folded all of that apple and stuff into the batter, I just cooked it off like normal pancakes. So I cooked it off in the cast iron pan, used a little bit of butter, ghee or lard or whatever I used, a little bit of oil in the pan, because pancakes, if you use a little bit of fat, you get that slightly crispy outside edge on the pancakes, and I really like that. Some people don't. Some people want them to be really soft, and then you would use far less sort of fat in the pan, just enough or you'd use a non-stick pan, so you don't have to use any fat. But I like that little crispy bit. So I just put little cups full of batter into the pan and cooked them off. I only filmed this first lot, and of course, anyone who ever makes pancakes knows that the first batch, there's always at least one that just doesn't work right, that's a little undercooked, or it splits when you flip it, and that's no different in this particular case. So I've got one that sort of gets a bit mushed in the corner of that pan. So I just cooked them all off. I used both pans, cooked them off as quickly as I could, because making individual pancakes for a family of 8 is always a little bit of an ordeal. I did look at making Dutch Baby. That's what I was going to do, because at least I pour it all into a pan and then it's done. But because I saw the email that it was Pancake Day and I had all those apples to use, I decided to make pancakes. So I served them up with the apple scrap syrup that I mentioned yesterday. So this was the syrup that was made from cores and peels of apples that I used to make apple pie filling and apple butter and stuff that I had canned. I also made this apple scrap syrup, which is really nice. So I used that apple scrap syrup over the top of the pancakes. I used a little knob of butter on mine because I happened to have some butter in the fridge, because I was going to make some ghee because we'd run out and I never did. So now I get to have some butter for a little bit. So, it's kind of nice. And then that was sort of brunch. This is the focaccia from yesterday. So this was made throughout the day yesterday, put in the fridge overnight. I pulled it out in the morning and stuck it in the tray, and then put it aside to rise, and then after a few hours this is what it looks like, really, really puffy. So then you dimple it, so you oil the top of it and dimple it by pushing your fingers through to the base of the pan. I used some flaked salt. Normally I would use a bit of rosemary or something, but I didn't want to run out to the garden to grab it. So we just did the flaked salt and put it in to bake. So it goes into the barbecue up on a colander, so it's raised up, it's in cast iron. It takes around about 25 minutes at around about 220 degrees Celsius. I always check the internal temperature when the timing is up. You want it to be 190 degrees Fahrenheit or 95, 99 degrees Celsius. So I check the internal temperature of the focaccia because it's a little hard to tell, because you want it to brown nicely on top. And it's fairly short cook time because it's fairly thin. So this is what it looks like once it was cooked. I don't think I've got any other footage of it, but it's really nice. There is a whole video about it. The next thing I had to do was I had 1 tray of chicken breasts left. So I had already sorted out those 4 trays of thighs. 1 we had eaten, 3 we had marinated and cooked off, but I had a tray of breasts left as well. So they needed to be sorted and before they go out of date. So I decided that we would do faux KFC for dinner, and then the rest we would put aside. So what I did was I filleted the nice plump part of the breasts and filleted them into nice thin pieces to use for the faux KFC, and then all the tenderloins and all the other bits and pieces that were left I cubed up to put in the freezer. I don't freeze raw meat very much. I like to cook it before I freeze it, and if I get a good deal on breasts, then I tend to smoke them all and then slice them and freeze them. There's a couple of videos showing that. But I only bought 2 trays of them this month, and I used one of the trays already throughout the first 2 weeks, and then this tray needed to be put away. So in saying that, I don't freeze it raw very often, but there is some meals that I really like it raw for. These are things like butter chicken or the green chicken curry or things like that, mango chicken, anything that the chicken is cooked within a curry type sauce, I suppose. I like the meat to be raw and to be cooked in the curry. You can use, I have used the cooked thighs before, but the thighs are marinated, so generally speaking that will alter the flavour of what you're eating. Breasts can be dry when they're cooked other ways, but when they're cooked in a curry they don't tend to be as such, and they tend to pull the flavour of the curry because breasts are fairly bland. So I don't freeze raw meat very often, but I do like to freeze some breasts raw for using for things like the green chicken curry, and that's probably what this will get used for later on. So I put that into a Ziploc bag and put that in the freezer or a vacuum seal bag or whatever I happen to have there to go into the freezer so that I can use it over the next few weeks left of the month, sort of thing. For dinner, as I said, we're doing the Faux KFC Tenders. So I slice those filleted pieces into strips because you just want them to cook fairly quickly. That's the only reason I cut them smaller. It just makes it easier to cook them. And I like to crumb them. So I don't crumb very much at all, or bread, whatever you want to call it. These are sort of breaded, not really crumbed, because I'm not using crumbs as such. I don't do it very often because it's time consuming and kind of messy and just generally unnecessary, but every now and again I make this faux KFC dish, which we really enjoy. So this particular time I used the seasoned flour, but I had some in the freezer from last time I made it. So normally I mix up a fresh batch, so I just use plain flour, smoked paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, a bit of thyme, a bit of celery salt, salt and pepper. That's the seasoning that I use for this sort of KFC flavor type chicken. So I had some of that in the freezer already, so I grabbed that out. I also had the cracklings from the lard that I rendered. So what I did was I pulled a chunk of those out, put the flour and the cracklings into the Thermomix, and then blended it into really fine powder. And that's what I'm going to use to crumb it this particular time. So the way that it works to get good crumb on your chicken if you're not deep frying it, I used to work at KFC a very, very long time ago, and they basically just flour it and then deep fry it, which works. But if you're not deep frying it, then you need to get those crumbs to stick, and you need a bit of a thicker layer. So I very rarely deep fry anything. Every now and again I do, but very rarely. What we like to do is just shallow fry. So I dip the chicken into the crumb mix or the flour mix, and then I dip it into a couple of eggs that I've whisked up, and then I dip it back into the flour mix, and then I fry it off. And we shallow fry it in the cast iron. We use a little bit of, normally a mix of oil and fat, so either a bit of rice bran oil and ghee, or a little bit of olive oil if I've got blended olive oil for the higher heat, the higher smoke point. But because I have the lard, I just use the lard. So I just use a couple of teaspoons full of lard. You just want it slick on the bottom. You don't want any actual depth in the lard. You just want there to be a layer of it over the bottom of the pan. And lard is the cheapest fat that I've got at the moment, so that works quite well for us. And it's tasty, and you're using the cracklings in it already. And I know there's opinions about it being unhealthy and everything else, but lard has one of the highest levels of vitamin D in an edible food, other than cod liver oil. It has less saturated fat than butter, and there's a bunch of different things about it. So everything in moderation. Make the decision based on your health status and your diet style, but we like to use lard, so you know. And so I fried it off in a bit of lard. So I actually don't appear to have any other footage of this. I have this tendency, if I'm not the only one cooking, to put the camera on while I'm doing it, but then I'll walk away and someone else will serve up or something, and it just doesn't happen. So unless I'm making a what we eat in a week video where I'm purposefully filming every part of a meal, I can get a bit slack by the end of the night. I'm pretty over it. And so this is like day 10 of daily videos, so I'm pretty over the whole process, to be honest. It just gets a little bit that way, and then I need to take a break before I come back. So how we serve it, how we like to serve it, is with mashed potato. So we did a whole bunch of mashed potato, and then just frozen veggies that are steamed in the steamer pot, and then I make that really bad for you gravy, the rich gravy from Costco. So we had fried chicken in lard with mashed potatoes, steamed veggies, and that really bad for you gravy. But it is one of my favorite meals. We probably only make it once every 6 to 8 weeks because I don't buy chicken breasts very much to use for that sort of thing, and that's what I prefer to use to cook like this. We do occasionally do crumbed thighs, little pieces of crumbed thighs, or something like that, but it's not often, because as I said, it's just a little bit of a messy sort of extra few steps kind of a meal that is, while it's lovely, is completely unnecessary. It's a bit of a treat meal. So, you know, that's what we had for dinner tonight. So now we've processed all the meat, not quite all the meat actually. I have a fresh silver side in the fridge still, which I will pull out over the next few days and put in a brine, and then once it's brined or corned, whichever way you want to say, then I will use a rub on it and we will smoke it, and it will then chill, and we will have that as cold sliced meat for a few days. Pastrami-esque is what it's like. It's not really classically a pastrami, but it's very similar to, without the skill set of someone who makes pastrami all the time. It's close enough for us. And I also still have one of the big rolled pork roasts in the fridge, so we will do something with that. I may mince some of that up to use, maybe I'll make some sausage rolls, maybe we'll do some spring rolls, or some sort of Asian style. Maybe we'll do barbecue pork buns at some point. I haven't really decided what I'm doing with that other pork roast yet. And we have some there was something else in there, some baby back ribs, which will be cooked in the next couple of days as well, and they were just a treat for Darryl and I. That's only really for Darryl and I. It's a small serve. It was, I found a cheap packet of it, so like at Costco sometimes you $50 or $60 worth of ribs, and I'm not going to pay that for that amount of ribs because we'll still eat them in one meal. So if I can get a $20 or $25 pack, then every now and again we'll grab it and Darryl and I'll have it to eat. So there's that to do as well. I think that's all the meat done now though. So now it's just a matter of any veggies that are left, and then starting to use some of the dry goods that were bought for things. So I bought, I do have that chuck steak that I want to make the birria out of, but I need to get some more guajillo, whatever it's called. I stuff that up every time. Chilies to make that. So I put that beef into the freezer because I know what I want to do with that. So it's in the freezer waiting for me to get the chilies so that I can make that. I think that's all for the moment. So I will update as I go if I can figure out anything else that needs doing, and I will keep on sharing, just not on a daily basis. What I'll do is I'll just condense it to a couple of days in a video, and we'll get the Q&A done as well. I'm rambling, trying to figure out what else needs doing over the weekend. What is today? Today's Thursday for me. So I've got the weekend to get the Q&A and everything done, and yeah, just figuring things out. Feel free to request anything specific in the comments if you want anything videoed over the next couple of weeks, because I will have some slots to make some specific stuff. As everyone knows, I don't tend to film things that I'm not already doing, but if there's anything I've mentioned that I'm doing that you specifically want filmed, please make sure to mention it, and I will try and make sure to do that. But other than that, that was it for today. So I feel like we've made a really good dent in the supplies, and we've got plenty of food half done at least for the next few weeks, and then by the time we get to the pointy end of figuring out what we're doing with all that food, it'll be time to plan the next grocery trip. Isn't that fun? Apparently when you have children you have to feed them, so I've heard. So we are you know, it's a non-stop, never-ending kind of a thing. So thanks for joining me again today and listening to my ramblings if you've got this far, and I will see you again probably tomorrow. I think I've got another video for you for tomorrow, and then we will see where we go from there. Thanks guys.